Sorry, can you do that again? Sorry.
No, that's all right. Well, thank you for joining me, Daniel.
You wanted to talk about a real Japanese guy, didn't you?
A real Japanese guy.
Yeah.
Which one?
Talking Yukio Mishima, I was thinking.
Oh, yes. Yes, no, fair enough. The famous actor. We're specifically talking about, or continuing to talk about, the sailor who fell from grace with the sea. Chapters 2 and 3 rather than just one chapter, because it would be easier and more digestible in
Yeah.
theory.
And chapter 2 is like 8 pages, so.
Oh man, yeah. So this is I wrote my chapter summary and it took me maybe 10 seconds. And
Yeah.
it's Ryuji wakes up, hangs out in bed thinking of his life to date, then speaks to Fusako, plays with her boobs, and is told that she thinks Noboru knew somehow that they did all the things that the Bloodhound Gang talked about in their song "The Bad Touch."
Yes. A song that I know.
Yeah, everyone knows it.
Me, who's notoriously tapped into pop culture.
Getting horny now.
This is where it starts to tease, or sort of there's the foreboding of him falling from grace with the sea, right? Like this is the chapter where he starts to have his doubts about his vocation and his destiny.
Yeah,
And
it certainly makes clear that like he feels as though he's in some sort of contractual obligation with the sea, and sort of due to that has had to cut spiritual ties with the land, but it doesn't sound like he's that keen on it.
No, not yet.
I think so. What's your chapter 2? We actually get this is a point of view chapter of Ryuji.
Yeah.
What are your takeaways? What do you reckon?
Well, my big takeaway is this is him. Like this is Mishima, I guess, signposting that this sailor might not be too long for the sailor world. That he's landed. He's received the temptation, and now he's starting to like it's sowed these doubts in his mind about what he ought to be doing. You know, he's not expressing this in terms of oh, I really like this chick, but it's more of a well, can I continue living this life as a sailor?
Well, that's interesting because I picked up from this that he just seems like a bit of a dumbass.
Yeah.
He, I think that he has like a ludicrous degree of self-regard given his age and knowledge and worldliness. And I get, there's some things I sympathise with. I'm just reading through my notes now. I get vibes of hating all male workplaces, which I feel like as well. Every time I've worked in an all male workplace, I've wanted to fucking kill myself.
It stinks.
Yeah, absolutely. But I also think that he sort of Mishima being the clever writer that he is in portraying the character's own detestment of his colleagues while weaving in his own absolutely detestable qualities and how he's an annoying person to work with and to be around, with a massive ego and like a god complex almost.
Yeah, that's interesting to the God complex thing. He's got this sort of parallel with Noboru. He says, you know, like he had this idea in his 20s. There's just one thing I'm destined for, and that's glory. That's right, glory. And it's sort of, you know, that sort of like attitude is carried through in Noboru's thinking, not just in chapter 1, but obviously going through the book as well. And I annotated that with I like it sort of parallels with Noboru as the creator, I guess. Like this idea that like that when you're young and you're in your teens or you're in your 20s, you've got this sense of destiny and infallibility. And I feel like what this chapter is doing is he's starting to realize that Ryuji's starting to realize that this is unraveling a bit for him. He's starting to realize that actually no, he's an adult now.
I think that he don't like the impression I got was that he sort of resents sailing and doesn't really want to admit that it
Yeah,
wasn't a good idea to do it.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
probably should have just picked another sort of physical labor job.
yeah,
But I think that again, as that is the escape, as we previously touched on, for people in maritime nations like Japan,
yeah.
what's the alternative?
Exactly. But also keep in mind for Ryuji, he's a second mate, so he's not bottom of the heap of the merchant marines. He's like he's technically, well, he's the civilian equivalent of an officer, so I guess like he's a middle manager on the ship, really. So it comes with some privileges, but I mean, let's be honest, it's not exactly an intellectual job.
No, and he like ultimately he's not an intellectual person. I
Mm,
don't think. I think that
mm,
he has an impression that he's smarter than the people around him, but the people around him would be pretty low education. There would be effectively peasants who have been brought into the industrial
yeah,
setting of Japan post-war.
like us all in
Yeah,
a way.
absolutely. But I think that like the impression I got when I was reading it is like this is exactly the same way that Mishima thinks about himself, but it's like if a really dumb guy had those thoughts.
Mm, mm, exactly.
Like how you'd filter samurai mindset through someone who like put diesel in their car instead of petrol.
I like he has that nice little description in chapter 2 about his first sexual experience with a woman,
Oh, I
and
did
it
like
was
that. I like that. I'll read the quote. He goes to Hong Kong, and his first mate, or sorry, a senior officer, takes him to a brothel, and it's a very strange sort of setting. It sounds like they're on Stilt House or something.
mm,
And there's a pier, and the women are in sampans, um, waiting to make a man choose them to go in the sampan, and then they take the sampan to the brothel. When he says the girls pretend not to notice them. Some lay swaddled in quilts, bearing to the cold only dollish powder white necks. Which one do you want? The officer said. They're all young. Ryuji didn't answer. He was about to choose the first woman in his life, and having travelled 1,600 leagues in this bit of dirty reddish seaweed afloat in the turbid waters of Hong Kong, he felt curiously fatigued and perplexed. Going on, dot, dot, dot. The whore had been sitting in silence, her face puckered in the cold. But as Ryuji stepped onto her boat, she laughed happily, and he found himself half-heartedly believing in the happiness he was bringing her. Like, I thought that was quite
mm.
sweet. That's like a self-reflection that's not inward facing, I think, which I feel like Ryuji suffers from a lot. There's a lot of introspection directing his actions.
Yeah, yeah. It's something that seemed to have been a more or less positive experience. It's not quite often when you're reading in literature a man's first experience with a sex worker. It's often quite a I wouldn't say violent, but you know, it's
It's
traumatic in a way.
well, it's
It's
it's it's like it's either a point of mockery or it's a point of pity. But
yeah,
realistically, like this is a very realistic view into male sexuality of the period, and probably now, although they didn't have the volcel incel shit back then,
mm, mm,
where people would just be like, well, okay, it's no, I'm still a virgin. I will
yeah. You're
go and
24,
find a
mate.
prostitute.
Come on.
Or one of your mates says, oh, you're still a virgin. I'll buy you a prostitute. And it's
Yeah,
not a big
yeah,
thing. That's the losing your virginity is, but it's not like, it's not a point of mockery or pity or whatever. Your mate's going to find you a beautiful woman to give you one night where it's really good,
yeah.
and you won't get an STI because it was before Ronald Reagan invented AIDS.
That's right. I think we tend to look at sexual liberation as almost like in a very Whiggish way, like a straight line from the '60s, and it's sort of a diagonal line going up. And then you trace it back. You're like, well, obviously before the '60s would have been a diagonal line going down. So like basically, you know, there's been general trajectory in history that people have become progressively more sexually liberated, and I think it's a bit blinkered because in most modern societies, there wasn't really that stronger prescription against adultery in the strict sense. Having sex outside of marriage. Yes, it
Hmm.
was still frowned upon in some areas of society, but in Japan in the mid 20th century,
Or in Asia
Fine.
generally, I don't
Yeah.
think it was a big monogamy was a big thing
No.
until Christian values got imported there effectively.
Mm.
Like they had concubines up until the Renaissance, effectively, all across
Mm.
Asia.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Um,
they had concubines in the Renaissance in Italy as well. Like they had sex
yeah,
slaves.
they just
Anyway,
couldn't
sorry.
they couldn't say that that's what it was.
Yes. Yeah, they're like, oh, it's okay because she's an Orthodox Christian, not a real Christian. Anyway.
It's just to go back to Ryuji. Like I ultimately, we're early in the book, and I'm not reading ahead. You've read the whole thing.
Mm.
You've read the whole damn book.
Yeah.
But I haven't. But I feel that Ryuji, he's sort of every thought that I have is a good one, and everything that I
Yeah.
believe is effectively, something that should be pursued or listened to.
Which is, it is also a bit endearing.
It is, yeah. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
this is like talking to the dumb guy at work who's bought crypto, and you're
Yeah, who's
like,
bought crypto, or they've just stumbled upon a TV show that's been out for 6 months and they're dying to tell you all about
yeah,
it.
and
And
you're
you're like,
like,
oh,
it's
that's
not,
great, man.
that's not, who cares? It's not hurting anyone. It's probably going to hurt
Yeah.
you at some point if you bought crypto,
Yeah.
but good job. I hope you are a millionaire because of it,
Yeah.
and if
Yeah.
you aren't,
Exactly.
then that's probably, pretty likely. But
Yeah.
the bit that I liked was when he was talking about his experience with Sako and the sort of his post one night stand clarity, post nut clarity, but more like a clarity of looking at the situation from the perspective that you were talking about, where he was looking at it more from a should I forsake the sea for a life in land? This is the first
Mm.
stirrings of that. They'd created in a single night a new situation, and now it appeared to bewilder them. For the moment, their bewilderment was the only etiquette. Ryuji, with what he liked to call the unbelievable arrogance of intolerable people, was
Mm-hmm.
calculating how far he might be able to go. I love that so much because that is so like, oh, as I always say, assholes do as assholes do, some other bullshit aphorism from a dumbass. Like, it's so that so hits the nail on the head. It's like people who say, it is what it is. But that's exactly what he's saying, as I've always said, unbelievable
Mm.
arrogance of intolerable people.
Well, that's a very classic, like, like, I mean, the modern version of that is like dumb people who are like, oh yeah, like, how dumb people that they love to talk about them. Is it not the Myers? There's some so-called effect where it's like, oh, the Dunning-Kruger effect, and dumb people love to talk about the Dunning-Kruger effect,
Oh, yeah,
and they'll
yeah.
be like, and they'll talk about it as if it's this revelation. Oh, it's, and that's just the Dunning-Kruger effect. You're like, man, like it's talking about you, man.
Yeah, this
Like,
this is the laugher curve, dude.
yeah,
Great. And
yeah.
you
All
say
right,
he drew this on a napkin. Incredible. He must have been the world's greatest
yeah.
economist.
And supply and demand.
Yeah.
So, chapter three, it's a bit like it's not chapter three. Chapter two, like, is establishing, I think, the character of Ryuji, and it's I think it's setting the scene for the novella, which is, well, it's setting the theme. I think is, that this sailor has come ashore. He has had sex with this beautiful. Well, I don't know. It's not really described whether
I don't think,
she's attractive, but she's not,
yeah,
like, well read. And anyway, we can get into that because that's the next chapter. Chapter three sort of goes a bit more into
yeah.
Pusaka,
I think that
Pusaka,
this chapter though, he,
Pusaka.
apart from his intolerance and the things I don't like about him, I think that he portrays him as a very sort of sweet lover, as someone who
Yeah,
uh, has a genuine affection, and there's no valence. It's just what you see is what you get. He's sweet to her. He speaks with her in a way that a lover would. There's no like, oh, I'm a troubled man or whatever. It's just like, no, this is the situation. It's a bit awkward. Where's your boy going today?
yeah.
Did you want to get breakfast? All that sort of stuff. I find that,
He genuinely enjoyed himself.
yeah, I find that to be a very, like, there's no weirdness. There's a bit of weirdness with Naboru, but it's just a normal thing. This is a
Yeah.
portrayal of a normal sexual relationship between two people. So have you got any good lines you'd like to run through?
From chapter two.
Yeah.
No, the only one was that one I remarked on before, which is there's just one thing I'm destined for, and that's glory. That's right, glory, and I think that really sort of encapsulates the mindset of a lot of young men. I mean, you and I as well when we were younger. I'm assuming. Well,
There is
me definitely.
there's an additional bit to that in the next
Yeah.
paragraph.
What do you mean? Yeah.
And it seemed increasingly
Yeah.
obvious that the world would have to topple if he was to attain the glory that was rightfully his. These were consubstantial, glory and the capsized world. He longed for a storm. Like, it is, this is the sort of shit that you would think when you're like 16 and you were like,
Yeah.
you were like, oh, maybe when I'm an adult, I can be evil. Like,
Mm.
you watch Lord of War and you're like, yeah, I could do that. I've got no ethics or morals. But this guy's
Yeah.
supposedly 29, 30. You know, he's someone who should be over this, I would think.
Yeah, but then I mean, look, we'll deal with this a bit later. But when you get that character, the sort of character assessment from the private detective, which is a later thing,
Hmm.
it all becomes clear that he's a bit of an odd guy.
Yeah, and I
He's
also think
a bit of a weirdo.
a bit of an idiot, like in
Yeah,
general. Like he's just a bit thoughtless. But I don't know. Like it's he is a type of guy that's so hard to describe, but everybody knows. He's the guy
yeah.
who's like you can't call him an idiot, even though he does say and do stupid things. But you wouldn't call him like a smart guy or anything.
No,
He's someone who's well read.
he's educated, but in a very technical sense.
Have you read Nausea by Sartre?
No.
So there's a character in Nausea who's called the autodidact, who's just like a bureaucrat, but he's constantly talking about how he's like a modern day philosopher, and he's got all
Mm,
this knowledge and understanding from reading books and blah blah blah. But like he's an idiot. Like he's someone who's read a lot of books and it's all congealed in his head and he's got access to all these ideas, but there's no connection between the applicability and the knowledge. And that's
mm,
the impression I get with Ryuji is he's someone who's like rather than being an autodidact, he's like an auto ideologue almost. Like he's someone who's driven to a great destiny without actually having any plan to do anything at all in his
mm.
life. But he's like, well, I could do, it's going to happen if
He
I,
literally has no plans.
yeah,
He's just like, oh yeah, I've just basically saved every fucking paycheck and not spent them.
if I just hang
You know?
out, something will happen to
Yeah,
me and it'll be
yeah,
great. And it's like, okay, well, that's not, why do you think that? Like, it doesn't, and this might be a cultural thing, this may be a cultural stereotype in Japan where they have people who are like I don't know, like a philosopher or like a prophet or something. He's
mm.
almost like those, the yellow turban bandits in Romance of the Three Kingdoms who are just like that will seize destiny, but they actually did something. Unlike him,
Yeah,
he's just sort of on a ship and then figuring it out as he goes. Although not even doing that, he's sort of just working and grimacing at people that he works with, which I do,
yeah,
and I don't.
yeah,
I don't think that that's a bad thing necessarily, depending on your workplace.
yeah. And but it's not even apparent. Like, I mean, it's not apparent from this text that what exactly he gets up to at sea, what his leisure time consists of. It's not apparent whether he
Well,
even does he read.
it's
Does he read?
annoying the piss out of people with sea shanties by the sound of it.
Oh yeah.
And playing modern pop hits that
Yeah.
that are so great that he makes multiple references to how people avoid him on ship.
So should we go to chapter 3 then?
Yeah, let's.
Because I actually I enjoyed this a lot. This was a really good
Oh, how about
depiction of.
you summarize this chapter?
Okay, well, this chapter I think fleshes out the character for Sako, the mother, and gives us a bit of insight into the life of this family, that is Noboru and Fusako. So it's quite apparent that they are more. I think they're more than middle class. Like they seem relatively
I think they're upper
well to
middle.
do. I'm not going to say wealthy, but like yeah, they're upper middle class. Like she runs a specialty import, like a specialty clothes shop, importing stuff from the west. She's got famous clients.
Yes.
Um,
Like a boutique.
one
She
of
runs a
whom acts as
boutique.
a boutique, yeah, exactly, and sort of like she's got this manservant, Shibuya, who sort of runs the business for her, and she does a lot of the. She's the one with the eye for nice things, and she's the one who keeps the clients happy and stuff. And people seem to like her. She seems to be a very nice, likable woman. She's heads buried in her work. Um, so I think what chapter three serves to do um, is to just flesh out that family a little bit more. It gives us a bit more insight into one Fusako, two the family life, and three that should then lead us to start to be able to draw a few more conclusions about Noboru. What life has he been brought up with, and then we can start to think about later on in the novella. Oh, why is this kid like he is?
Yeah. I think that it's also reflective of Ryuji. I think that she's quite straightforward. Um,
Mm,
she describes him as a rugged, simple man, or seems to be a rugged, simple man,
yeah,
with an air of indifference.
which is a good. Girls like that.
Yeah, I mean, she certainly liked it. I feel like she's sort of got a bit of a dimmer view of him than he has built up in his head of her,
Mm,
where he's sort of seeing her as his woman, and she's sort of seeing it as like a, well, it's nice.
yeah, it'd be an extra pair of hands around the house. That'd be pretty
Yeah,
good.
it was the sex was good.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh, I'm lonely. Like, and I don't know. Look, well,
Now,
mm,
do you think that she showered? That's my question to you.
that she showered after.
Because page 24,
Yeah,
um, she was aware of her flesh beneath the clothes as continuous thigh and breast in warm accordance. Semicolon. That's a bit odd. It was a new sensation. And she could still smell the sweat of the man. As if to test them, she curled her stocking toes. I don't reckon she showered.
don't Japanese people usually bathe in the evening? Isn't that the
This may
cultural
be a
norm?
cultural thing. This may be another
Yeah.
cultural thing. But that seems a bit, I don't know. Like they're talking about how hot it is.
Well, don't knock it till you try it.
Well, all right. I mean, Napoleon was big on not showering. He told, when he came back from Italy, he said to Josephine, I'll be back within 2 weeks. Do not shower.
Anyway, so I like this. It gave a really good I think insight into the life of this family. And you're right. I think she was viewing this a little bit more differently, or maybe a little bit more practically. She had a good time and she wanted more. And I think what we're starting to see is she has this son she loves, but he is also a little bit annoying.
Mm.
He's
Yes, I've actually underlined Noboru annoying um, in one section here because they went into the pilot house. Noboru wanted to touch everything. Like I know that. I know that feeling, dude.
and he's what? He's 13, isn't he?
13. He
13?
sounds like a pain in
13.
the ass.
Yeah. Which, like I can see myself doing this as well, but he's just still going on about this fucking boat. She's a
Mm,
flush deck, mum. Looks like a pretty good ship, all right. Flush deck is obviously a ship without, it's just a single deck that runs along the entire ship. There's no
mm,
ladders up and down. Anyway, and it's just like, and it says, unable to contain the knowledge that crowded his brain, Noboru held forth to his disinterested mother.
mm. I love that she's describing herself as disinterested.
Yeah.
Well, in her own imaginings. You didn't really get into the structure of the chapter, but
No,
I
I
can cover
didn't.
that now. It's
Please.
so it starts out with Fusako going to work at the shop,
Hmm.
and then she thinks about the day prior where her and Noboru went on the boat, met Ryuji, and then went back. They were on the pier to get the first bid. This is a bit confusing to me. So obviously there's some sort of bidding process that went with unloading of the ships where you could bid on material being unloaded. So she went there to do the first bid to get the finest material,
Yep.
and then as a result met one of the mates, met Ryuji, and then went on the tour of the boat. And then afterwards, they she caught up with him afterwards, and they went had dinner together and all that sort of thing. But I think that this is weirdly more indicative of the corruption, like the very low level permeating
Yeah,
corruption that you see in a lot of Asian countries. That is sort of
yeah,
like, I think a lot of white people don't quite get it, that it's like the lubrication there.
yeah. There's no like this. Yes, there are rules, but there are always ways to just bend them slightly, and it becomes apparent a bit later in the novel as well, where they start that they sort of describe the birthing process for ships as well, and how they've got these systems of prioritizing which ships berth when and how quickly their cargo gets unloaded, and the conclusion you draw from that is that, well, there's probably a bit of to and fro with the shipping companies and the stevedores of them being like, okay, we need to get this stuff unloaded quick, so we'll give you extra money just to get this ship berth and back out to sea. And um, I guess, like, I don't have much insight into the stevedoring industry in Australia, but my understanding is it's a little bit more orderly. Like, you basically have these berths booked like months in advance.
Yeah. So this is the from page 22. Whenever a ship docked at Yokohama, I didn't realize that's where this was said, obviously. Sorry, whenever a ship docked in Yokohama, an import agent who was an old friend of the family uses connections with an X, spelled the classic way, to
Hmm.
get them into the bonded warehouse as soon as the cargo had been unloaded. Often Fusako was able to place a bid before other buyers had seen the shipment. So
Yeah,
her quality label comes down to the fact that she can buy up a product before anyone gets an opportunity to do so.
yeah. And this is, I mean, Yokohama is it's the port. Like it is. It's Tokyo.
Hmm. So it's like, I think that's more interesting to me. I'm like, I want to know more about this, how these docks work,
Mm.
but I think that's not really in
This is not,
Mishima's.
unfortunately, yeah. He's not too interested in the economics of maritime shipping.
Yeah, or the I think the obviousness of the corruption
Mm.
that existed in Japan, it's so saturated that it's almost not even consciously commented upon.
Mm.
The
Mm.
fact is she's successful because she gets her first bid in, but
Yeah,
she gets her first bid in because she's got this family network of people who she
yeah.
can lean on to use their corruption to get this stuff.
And speaking of family, like just running back, she remarks on her husband. So it says she had never actually counted until that morning, 5 years since her husband's death.
Hmm.
It had never seemed so long in passing, but all of a sudden, like a white obi, she would never be able to wind up. 5 years was a dizzying length. We never find out about her late husband. We don't know anything about him, which makes me think she didn't actually hold him in that high regard.
No, I get
Once
the
again, she
impression.
saw him as like a companion and someone to raise a kid with.
I think that she's certainly more interested in running the business than she was in being married to him.
Yeah,
That's what I get in the chapter.
yeah.
And I think that she seems a lot more competent at it than he was, by the way that she interacts with her clients and
Mm,
her, you know, the major domo, whatever his name was,
yeah.
Shibuya or whatever. I do like how much of a bitch she is though when she has the airheaded
Oh, yeah.
celebrity come into the shop and she has to grit her teeth and sell her shit at a ridiculous markup.
Oh yeah, and I mean, this relationship goes on throughout the book, and it's. I think it's obvious that sort of this woman's a bit of a foil for Mishima as well. But anyway, we can talk a bit more about her later once her character's fleshed out. But maybe you wanted to just run quickly over what was her name again? The actress
You,
Yoriko Kasuga.
yeah. So she's sort of like a new big actress
Mm,
who, in the nascent, film industry of the 60s in Japan, and being a big actress then is not really noteworthy, but it's certainly more noteworthy than not being anybody. So she hasn't got a lot of money, and she hasn't doesn't sound like she's a particularly good customer, very picky and haggles over the price and all that sort of stuff,
mm, mm,
which Fusako doesn't like. But Fusako sees Yuriko as a commoner
mm.
who's got money,
Yeah,
and she doesn't like that at all.
yeah.
She makes reference to her flaws and vulgarity being apparent as always, but they always seem as cool, as inoffensive as goldfish swimming in a bowl.
Mm.
And it's like I don't know what the class structure is here, I don't know if you're in a position to criticize, but it just does make her come off as a bit of a bitch.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, you can see this dynamic playing out. A situation where for someone like Fasako, she's educated, refined, ambitious, probably fairly attractive, and she's got this, yeah, sort of this new money actress who's, like sounds like a little bit rough around the edges, not very refined. She's got sort of a learned taste in fashion and and sort of culture, but not that sort of innate one, not the one that
No, it has to rely on people like Fusako
yeah,
for
yeah,
guidance on what is fashionable and so on and so
yeah,
forth.
yeah,
And
exactly.
Fusako's taking advantage of that by having her as a resented but corralled customer.
Exactly, exactly. And it's also good to have those sort of customers because they attract other customers and they
Exactly.
anyway, yes.
That's then this is a celebrity customer. People will say, "Where'd you buy that?" Oh, from
Mm.
Fusako's
I bought
shop.
from
Or
Rex. Rex
yes,
Limited.
Rex Limited, which is a great name for a
I know.
company.
I have underlined it and written King next to it. There you go.
Absolutely. So,
So yeah.
is there any other lines you want to go over
Um
with this chapter?
fr-
There were a
from
lot of
from
good
this
ones.
one, yeah, I blitzed through it pretty quickly. The big one that I had was actually just the last paragraph, which is like I really enjoy these inner monologue bits of the book. Um, like for me, they're the ones that's where the author is telling you here's what you need to think. Like he's sort of putting it there in it's there in italics for us. Here's what's going on right now.
Mm,
So do you want me to read it finally?
certainly.
So it says, this is right at the end, and Fasako, from her point of view, it says the night before they'd gone to the grand new hotel for dinner. They being Fasako and Ryuji, and her inner monologue says, "I was just trying to thank him then. He ate so properly, just like an officer. That long walk after dinner. He said he'd walk me home, but we got to the new park on the hill and he didn't feel like saying goodnight yet. So we sat down on a park bench. Then we had a long talk, just rambled on about all kinds of things. I've never talked so much with a man before, not since my husband died." But the funny thing about that is, as we
The build
will,
up.
yeah,
The
the,
build
the
up to that is probably the funniest part of the chapter, I think.
Yeah, you find out but you'll find out later on what they actually talked about was it was just
Just
this
dog
the
shit.
lunacy, yeah, dog shit lunacy going through Ryoji's mind at the time. I think he
I
sung her a sea shanty, didn't he, or some romantic song?
I don't know. The three paragraphs beforehand is she's talking about the unloading of the ships,
Mm,
in what you could construe as a sexual fashion. But the half-naked bodies of the stevedore glisten dully in the dusk at the bottom of the hold. There's certainly a sexual aspect to the removal of the load. So they're being craned out of the boat. She was thrilled to the sight of cargo no man could move, winging lightly into the sky, and then she could have watched forever. It may have been a fitting destiny for cargo, but the marvel was also an indignity. Like it's
yeah,
so like let's put this crane in and out of this boat, in and out, take the cargo in and out. These strong men will help you take the
but
cargo out.
but also, speaking of strong men helping take the cargo out, think also about chapter one where we've got this scene of Noboru in the chest of drawers. So basically, in what you would describe as almost a crate, a crate or a container. Um,
An unknown bit of furniture, I think we ended
yes,
up going to.
yeah. But it sounds to me like Fasako needs a man to lift this bit of cargo out of her life.
Absolutely. Maybe put a bit
There
of
you go.
cargo in.
How's that? That's the first something I've said all.
I,
I didn't pick up on such. Yeah, whatever. That's a Patrick
I
thing, I
liked
think.
that it was I mean, the hatch was a dark, large fissure in the steel plates of the deck at their feet. Come on. But she's also, this is right after she faints. So she faints in the pilot, the cabin, and
Yeah.
she's roused to and taken off the boat. And this is where she watches this. And then she says, she must have spoken then. It's been so kind of you to show us around. When I know you must be busy, I was wondering if you're free tomorrow evening. Perhaps we could have dinner together. It was a social invitation, and no doubt Fusako spoke the words coolly. To Suzuki's ear, it sounded like the babbling of a woman stricken with the heat. Like that, I have definitely tried to ask someone out in Darwin when it's really hot and you just gibber, and people are like, "No, sorry."
That's the story of my life.
Oh dear. So I definitely think someone's getting horny in this book.
Yeah, yeah, they are, but it's like what you described before. That little passage at the end, I think what it portrays is actually quite a normal human interaction. There's just these two adults who haven't actually had that much, we'll say, like sexual experience in their lives, trying to, I guess, like bump around each other that'll basically have sex again,
Yeah,
and to see each other again, and I think it's quite cute. Actually, I really like it.
I do too. Should we move on to our pet theories?
Oh yeah, okay. Maybe we'll nail them to the ground now,
All right, I'm going to
and then
start. I'll start with mine,
yeah,
and you can gather your notes for
okay,
yours. Your pin board with a red string
yeah.
going from pin to pin. I reckon that Ryuji was the union delegate because this guy screams delegate to me.
Do you reckon that? But did they have union delegates?
I
Oh,
don't know whether
fucking.
he is like if it's like an
But he's got the archetype of the union delegate. Is that what you're
absolutely.
saying?
He is the smart ass. He's the person who will say to the shift lead, "Well, actually, I have collated all my hours for the last 6 weeks, and I only got overtime for bloody, 3 of those hours. And I really should have got it for 3.25." And the boss is just like, "Oh, I'm on the fucking boat with this cunt. And I have to fucking hear this for the next 6 weeks.
Yes.
All right, mate. Whatever you reckon. You do your spreadsheets. You know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like his detestable qualities are really like he would be the one person who would complain constantly to all of his colleagues to the point where they're just like, I'm so sick of listening to this. And then as soon as they're like, say one thing and complain, he'd be like, well, you may as well join the union then, mate. Like, why not? Why wouldn't you join the union? It sounds like you got a problem. You should do it.
He's he's very much a like the sort of guy that, you know, as soon as he walks out of the room, everyone's like, oh, thank
Yes, I definitely got that impression. Or they're just like, make eye contact and smile. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Like he's real coworker core, right? Like as the 2026 term is, he's a real coworker.
so yeah, that's my pet theory. He's in the union and he's the delegate, and it's a union saturation of 1 on that boat.
Well, I'll tell you mine, which there's not much to explain until the end, but I think it's worth thinking about it as you read through it. Which is, I think we're introduced to this character a little bit later on. Actually, I think it's chapter 4. No, chapter 5. Sorry. The chief, in very very short terms, Noburo is part of this gang of these little shits, and they've got this strict hierarchy, and the one at the top is calls himself the chief, and he makes these big grand pronouncements and sort of philosophical sort of philosophical statements. And my view is that you, when you read the chief, you need to read that as that's what Mishima is telling you. This is the voice of Mishima. No,
As in, that's what
this
he
is.
believes.
I wouldn't say that's what he believes, but it's more like this is the message of the book. Here is the wisdom from, it's passing from Mishima to you via the chief. And so whenever I've been reading the chief, I've thought this is Mishima sort of threading himself through the novel. Anyway, we'll get to that. We'll get to
Mm,
that later. But I mean,
interesting.
I find this dynamic of the boys uh, very puzzling. It's unlike anything that I've noticed, which is what makes me think that there is something a bit out of reality for this, which makes me assert that this is a Mishima thing and there's Mishima talking.
Mm. Yeah, I see what you're talking about. But that is going to be left for
Yes,
the next episode of this. Of these episodes of
yeah,
our
but a
lives.
lot of
Fuck,
that
we talked
was
for
sort of
51
ignorant.
minutes.